A Harvard study has shown that relationships is the absolute key to health. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. You're listening to All Cards on the Table podcast with Claire and Sylvia, a show that talks about how men and women aren't so different from each other. We just don't speak the same language. We will dissect every topic and put an end to miscommunication. So, get ready to get uncomfortable. Hi and welcome back. My name's Claire Attio.
Hi everyone, this is Silvia Yajaira.
And today we're going to actually be discussing the Harvard study, which is a longitude study that started in 1938. It took 700 men, their spouses, and then their families, their children as they went on. It's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And the results of that are actually showing that it's got nothing to do with how much we exercise, what we eat, what we smoke, what we drink, whether we do or whether we don't. What it's got to do with health is predicted by health. A healthy, happy life is predicted by the quality of our relationships. And so Sylvia and I have come from very different backgrounds, and both of us have been in intercultural relationships. And so what we've actually kind of cottoned on to with this is those differences in culture have also created problems within the health of ourselves, because we're talking about physical health here. We're talking about an impact on our physiology. This is what the study is showing. So the health of ourselves and the health of our relationships. So it's been an interesting one, hasn't it, Sylvia?
Yes, it has. It was really interesting in what we were talking about prior when we were prepping for this, how different our cultures are. And even within my own marriage, it's very, we're like water and olive oil sometimes. But it is, when I look at it, it makes perfect sense to me because the way I was brought up, it's like I was telling you, we're on everyone's business, and that's a lot for some people. But from my family, and I feel very blessed, we're a really big family, and we're very, I'm blessed to have them all in my life. And I'm not gonna say that it's perfect, it's because sometimes it can be chaotic, but even the bad is good for me because I've always felt loved and cared for and surrounded by people. And for me, that's what I like, and that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things is for me is just growing up and being surrounded by aunts and uncles and my grandparents and great aunts and great uncles. And when I think about it, and when you say that, my family, actually my grandmother, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she, again, not something that it was discussed with the whole family. We all had to come up with the action plan for her and everything, and find the best possible hospital, somebody would care. I mean, it was a family event for everyone.
That
And she
fills me with horror. I'm going because I'm sat here, and this is the thing that we want to discuss. This is what we want to get across, because that for me fills me with absolute horror. And Sylvia and I discussed it because I had a breast lump scare a couple of years back. Well, it's probably about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, and I never told anybody, not a soul. I had everything done and sorted on my own.
yeah.
Then once I had my results and once everything had been sorted out, that's when, and even then I didn't make a big deal of, because telling people, it was just, if it came up in conversation, then
Yeah.
it came up in conversation. It wasn't something. So to tell everybody and have everybody there and have everybody, like, for me, mithering me, because that's how I would feel. Because they're only showing love and concern, but for me that was just like, oh my god, get away from me. I need to deal with this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's a learned behavior. It's a
It's a
learned
learned
behavior.
behavior, but when it comes to health, and this is actually one of the things in at least in Mexico, most Hispanic cultures, that I've realized that the health of one person is everyone's problem, and we do what it takes to take care of that person. So my mom is in the hospital now with hip surgery, and of course, the day that she had surgery, the whole family was in the lobby, including my grandfather and everything. And then they called me to be on FaceTime, and those that couldn't make it, everyone was on FaceTime. We're just sitting there being part of this, and we're talking and everything, and they're discussing who's going to take care of who, and who's going to come and stay with her over the night, and who's going to do this, and they're just organizing everything, and who's going to go shopping for for her groceries and stuff like that, whose house is she going to stay,
Oh, see,
everything.
again, that fills me with
And
absolute
I know to you, you're
dread.
like, but to me, that to me and to my mother and to all of us, that is family, and that's how we show our love.
Hmm.
My
Yeah.
mom is in cloud nine for that, and she actually recuperated really fast. She's doing very well, and that's because she goes, everybody comes over and helps me out, and it's such a great help, and I'm really energized and I'm feeling better now. Now, before, she didn't want to have the surgery because she was scared of going under,
Hmm. Anesthetic.
so anesthesia, yeah. And they managed to find someone that can just do local anesthesia, so she will be completely down. So this is how integrated my family is to, like, they're searching for top doctors, surgeons, and how the best way to do it, and what's the best, like, hip replacement, everything like that. And so which hospital has what kind of equipment, because my cousins are doctors and they work in, like, they're, so they know what equipment is better. I mean,
Yeah.
everything was done to a T. But to me, that's just like how you show love. How you show up for somebody and
Uh-huh.
for our family. But I can see that. Well, I honestly, no, I cannot see it. How you can do? I can't, because when I tell, like, my husband, who's Swedish, and my mother-in-law had heart surgery, and they just dropped her off at the hospital and everybody left, I nearly had a mental breakdown. Like, where's everyone going?
Yeah.
Gonna stay here overnight till they come out and tell us how she came out. Why would we do that? Why would you leave? Don't you love her? You know,
And
I
I'm sat here thinking,
do not understand.
why is it necessary for everybody to be in the lobby? One person, fine, but the whole family, it's just, I mean, I wouldn't have left my mother if she was having heart surgery up but again, we're going a bit more north, so that it's
Yeah,
different even more in their culture. But no, we just kind of make sure that one person's with them, and when they're actually having the surgery, what we would actually do as a family is, so for example, when my dad was poorly, my dad's been passed nearly 20 years now, but when he was poorly, we took them to the hospital. Mum stayed until he went to surgery, then went to collect mum and took her out for lunch.
mm-hmm.
She didn't stick around the hospital waiting. We took her out for lunch, diverted her attention, blah, 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 made sure our phones were on. And as soon as they phoned to say he was out of surgery, we took her back and she was there, so that when he was then taken to ITU, she was at his bedside in ITU. But I can't, it, see, for me, like, you can't fathom why you would leave somebody. I can't fathom why you would want to sit in a hospital waiting room for hours on end.
Yeah. Um, True. That's true. And I guess I should say, like, for us in our beliefs is that, I mean, we're all energy, right? And the more people, the prayers and everything, and the healing and the vibration of having love, so there's that energy of love so close by to someone who's not feeling well, raises also their vibrations. So for us, that is a sign of love, of, like, we're giving you our vibration of love, and that's why we're going to be surrounding you with more love and vibrations to bring you up. But like I said, those are our beliefs, and that's our
Yeah, I was going to
ways.
say that's more of a belief, because
So
vibrations don't work on proximity. You could be the other side of
Yeah,
the
they
world
do.
and you can send
The
those
energy healing,
vibrations.
for instance, energy healing and then
Yeah,
spread by prayer is important.
yeah.
And actually, there's been a study that prayer does work.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm not denying
absolutely.
it works, but
That and
the proximity of the person praying doesn't affect
no,
it.
no, no. I'm
The
not saying
amount
they're
of
sitting
people
at the
praying,
they're not
yes,
sitting there at the lobby praying. No, 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 no.
yeah.
I'm saying like prayer is an energy. When you have more people
Hmm.
around you, that's when you say, my mother's not feeling well. And you hear a lot of people like, please pray for my mom, she's not feeling well. That is helps, believe it does help.
Oh yeah.
And it might sound silly, but I didn't really quite understand it until, like, again, another study that was done as well for prayer. I can't remember when I read this one. It's back in early 2000s or something, that they actually calculated it. They were able to calculate it. And so when someone says like, oh, please pray for X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z, it's not for attention. It's more
No,
like
no,
we
no, no.
really need it.
It lifts the vibrations.
It
It gives
lives the
more
vibration.
energy to that person. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you have, for instance, and we can have two examples. So like you can have it when everyone's crying and it's really heavy burden, like because someone passed away, you can feel that vibration dropping, and if everyone else who was happy, they kind of go down.
Hmm.
So therefore, when you have everyone together having enjoying themselves as in a party, everyone, even if you were feeling a little bit depressed, it brings your vibration up.
Yeah.
And so therefore, we have that mentality that the closer we are to that person, that vibration is going to help that healing, that natural inside healing to become better. So that's where we come from, of like, if someone is down, we gather that person
Hmm.
near us to kind of share our love and our
But
energy.
that's a cultural thing rather than an energetic. I know what you're doing on an energetic level, but the being together and the proximity is a cultural thing.
Well, think about it when a baby is born and then they say they're not doing well, and just the fact that they put the baby on the mother on the
Hmm.
skin, it
Yeah.
brings them back sometimes. Even they brought babies back to life when they thought they were dead. So it is a proximity there to some general idea. And to this day, it's kind of like we don't, I mean, at least my family we don't say like, oh, we're gonna go and give you that energy, but we've noticed that when we're together and we're there and show up for each other, that person tends to heal faster. And so like you said, we go by experience. So therefore we continue to do that because it has worked for us
Hmm. Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
So, and I get that not every family has those dynamics because they are toxic relationships even within the family. And it can be hard. I get that. I do understand that. But for me, like, there's gotta be, I don't know, even if it's not your own birth family, you kind of make up
Yeah. Yeah.
your own family.
I think that's the key. That's the is having. I mean, I won't ever in I will not ever change in my culture
Mhm.
to the point that I would want to know that there was a room full of people waiting for me. I mean, that would I just like, oh no, I couldn't. No, I couldn't.
But I
And
don't think
whereas you couldn't think of it not being like that. But I think the key is, and the one thing that we wanted to get across in this podcast was relationships have a direct impact on our health. And
Mhm.
so, this being a podcast all about building healthy relationships, it's not only are you building healthy relationships for your mind and your soul, but you're building healthy relationships for your physical well-being.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
having,
absolutely.
if you're in intercultural relationships, then you really need to have very deep conversations with the people within your life so that you can give each other what you need and fully understand what it is you do need. Because I know one of the things come up for you since you've moved to Sweden is the fact Sweden, like the Brits, are a little bit more reserved. We have a very different culture. And of course, that's meant that you have not had that support system that you are accustomed to, and what you feel that you need to make you feel happy and healthy.
Yes, and that's also very true. I mean, like you said, there's many examples within my own life, but when I was going through my health, just physical health problems, and I was diagnosed with premenopausal, and I needed to go and have hormone therapy. One of the things that the doctor explained to me is how, because I'm going through a very organic way of holistic way of dealing with my hormones imbalance. But she said to me, it's like, did you know that in uh, Central America, South America, and parts of Mexico, uh, menopause is not, it's actually very rare because they're so integrated, which means that women who are separated from that tend to have premenopausal because uh, they are not connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really interesting. Who's this doctor telling me this? Because and I'm like, you know what? That is true. Because right now, my relationship with my husband's not that great. And I'm away from everyone I love. And my health is deteriorating. It's going down. I have anxiety attacks. I have all this. I've had so many things happening just because I don't have a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, yes, I can see that it does affect you physically. Once I knew that, and I started on meditation, doing a lot of meditation. And we were discussing this, how I just had this aha moment, of what my brother had told me one time, that, I've always been surrounded by people. I've always been surrounded by family members. I've always been surrounded. And when, like I said, even though, like you said, relationships doesn't just have to be your immediate family.
No.
You can make your own on your own family. So when I moved to Guam, even though I was far away from my immediate family, I had my what I call my Wont family,
Mm-hmm.
which were very selected, and we were always together. I mean, my house was always full. It's never been empty. And I've never suffered from anxiety, depression, anything. When I came to Sweden, the first thing I thought it was, oh, because there's no sun. So we go 6 months in darkness. Okay, I'm going to take my vitamin D. I'm going to take this and this, but it wasn't working. And then when I realized what it was, and that what was going to heal me was to be surrounded by people, and it has made a change. It's
Mm-hmm.
build a relationship, and I told my husband, I need you to hear me out and listen to me for what I need to be healthy. And that is, I need to be surrounded by people. I need my family. And if it's not just if it's my family can be here, then we need to be going to your family, which I'm sure that's going to drive them crazy because they're Swedes and they don't want people. you know? But I'm like, I am gathering friends here and there and this and that because I
Yeah.
need
You
that
call
circle.
them in. That, I think that's the thing. Call them in.
All
Understand what
again
you
because I
need.
need that.
Yeah.
And then when that felt good, and I was obviously going through another high, I noticed myself because I keep a diary of when my depression goes up and down, so I kind of know where my hormones are going. And I noticed I was peaking, and then I'm like my surroundings. I'm like, okay, I feel lonely right now, and that's when I told him and how it was, and then my depression and anxiety went down
Yeah.
just by the fact that he heard me, and it was the first time that we were able to communicate and listen to each other because we have talked and we have tried so many things, but we weren't, like you said, we were talking different languages and we just could not get it together.
And I think as well, it would be fair in saying that you didn't fully understand yourself,
Yes.
that your need was to have that physical contact with
Mm-hmm.
more than just one person.
More than one, just one person, exactly. And
That was a need because that is a culture and a learnt behavior, and it's a need within you. Whereas other people like myself, if as long as I have that contact with that one person, then and sometimes that one person can be me. I'm a little
But
hermit
here's
at times.
let me say something, because and I'm not gonna say this in the sense of, oh, this is why it is, but knowing this and what I look for, or not when I would look for it, I'm not gonna say I look for it, but when I notice is that people that I've encountered that have all kinds of anxiety, depression, all kinds of illnesses, I've always found them to be alone. They're always doing it alone. And to me, I'm like, where's your family? Where's with the people? Where's your, why are you here by yourself suffering? To me, it's like, is there a connection there that those illnesses are coming up because they're alone, or because they're not?
No, I don't think so. See, I
But I
wouldn't
would say,
actually,
like,
I wouldn't actually say that. I mean, for some, for sure, for some, depending on how they've been brought up, for sure. But a good proportion of that, unless like you, it's part of your culture, unless it's a learnt behavior and
well, I mean,
a
I can.
need.
It's not just my culture. I mean, you can go into parts of Europe that they're very much like that. Like, and especially down south in the Mediterranean, they're very, very family geared oriented. And they don't seem to have almost the same type of health issues as most other people in other families. And I'm not saying that's why. I'm just saying I'm curious to know if there's a correlation there. I'm curious to know if there's something that we need to look into
I think
to find out, because here in Sweden, and they're all alone, and they have all kinds of physical medical issues, and they find themselves alone. And I'm going like, and I'm not just saying because of my culture and I'm not going to understand, but I'm like, now I want to know if there's a correlation, because they don't have a relationship close by, or if they don't, do they feel like, do you understand? Like, I'm saying, like, if they're by themselves and they don't have that quality relationship, their health does deteriorate
well,
and contributes to that.
it will absolutely depend on whether they have a healthy relationship with themselves, or whether they are alone because they are in hiding. And that's a massive difference, because somebody who's choosing, somebody who's happy, and somebody who is content with life, and they're completely self-contained, is very different from somebody who is on their own because they feel that they don't fit into the world. So, and I think this is the biggest difference. So and I think that fitting into the world is very important. If you can be on your own, but you still feel like you fit in, you don't feel like an outsider.
I
Or
mean,
you can be on your own and you feel like you're on your own because you don't fit in anywhere. And so that's what I always call the hiding mode. And so that is not healthy, because you're then obviously running stories and programs, and you're isolating yourself because you don't feel like you fit in. And that's a massive difference from just being a bit of a hermit and just enjoying life, and spending time with yourself, and you're perfectly content, and you're perfectly content with your place within the world. So
yeah.
that's two
No,
different
those are
aspects.
two. That's an
Yeah,
introvert, extrovert kind of deal.
yeah.
But for instance, Sweden does have, unfortunately, and I wish that would change, a very high rate of unaliving themselves. Okay, and in contrast to other countries, and that is also because they're very isolated, very to themselves kind of people. One of the books that I read years ago, and it's now in English and it's become quite a successful Hollywood. It was originally Swedish.
Mm-hmm.
Was a man called Ove, and now it just came out with Tom Hanks called a man called Otto, and talking about the loneliness and how he's having all this. He's very lonely and he's lost his wife, the only connection that he had, and his health started deteriorating,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to unalive himself because, he said, there's no purpose for him. But it was when the community he lived in wanted to be a part of his life, and his family moved in, and she was in the Swedish version, it's I believe she's Middle Eastern, which is almost the kind of the same values or family matters that we have in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And a man called Otto, it was another Mexican woman who, of course, like myself, was just gonna go, hey, how are you? Gonna be in your life whether you like it or not, because that's how we and he became alive. He became, again, his health got better and he
Hmm.
lived years, according to that. So it does have a huge effect. Our relationships of being in contact with other people, having people around you, uh, to make you feel better, even when you don't feel good and you're just feeling a little bit low or anxiety. It's just being around people will calm you down. And I'm not saying like every person, because of course you have the wrong people in the rock toxicity, is having the right people, the right circle, your own little tribe that will.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there needs to be social. I mean, I'm a hermit, but I get pleasure, and that pleasure obviously kicks in the endorphins that keep me healthy. So I can go days and days without actually having anybody in my environment. But when I'm out walking the dog or when I pass a neighbor, I will exchange pleasantries with them.
Mhm.
Because I'm not on, and I think this goes back to, I'm not on my own because I'm in hiding. I'm on my own because I'm comfortable in my place in the world and I'm comfortable in myself. And so that makes a massive, so there is that interaction. And I do know that if I needed, so I'm taking personal responsibility and accountability. So if I felt like I was like, oh, I need interaction, then I will go and get interaction. And I think the difference is with somebody that is maybe, as you said, in that program, there was codependency within that relationship. They relied on each other and nobody else. And so once his wife had passed, he was in a complete void space and not knowing who to ask and not realizing that actually he needed that interaction. We all need interaction, all
Mhm.
of us, whether it's a big group or whether it's just one person or whether it's blood family or whether it's a family that we actually create from calling in our soul family. We all need that interaction. um there are points there, probably it needs a lot more study and a lot more in depth, but I wouldn't, there's definitely differences. I mean, a lot of the light in Sweden will have a lot to do, because I mean the light is very important. The light does have a massive impact, but is that, it's interesting, isn't it, actually saying that, does the light have the impact? Sorry, I'm kind of going off into tantrum here, because I know before I moved to Spain, the winters here used to get me down.
Mhm.
And I would actually suffer with SADS, and I would have the lamps and things. And since moving back, obviously I've done my first winter and I never suffered,
Mhm.
but I'm a different person. I've done that personal development. I have understood what I need to be healthy in life.
Yeah.
So so I was going to say it's probably the light, but is it, I'm not so sure whether it does it have a factor in it. Yes, but I think it's
I
more
think it
important
has
that
a factor in a sense, because and I mean it does some factor, because you can just see how the people are south of the equator versus
Mhm.
the more away from the equator that you are, the colder that it gets, and the
Yeah,
more reserved the people become.
yeah.
Um, I always joke around and I say, "Oh, it's because it's so cold, they don't feel like opening their mouths because their teeth are gonna hurt." I know that. So they don't talk as much, but that's me. That's my joke. That I always say that. And as we come closer to the equator, we have so much fun. It's so we need someone to complain to about how hot it is, so we can't stop talking. And so, and but there is, I mean, if you just look at that, the closer you are, the more sun you have, the more outgoing or more of a bigger character people tend to have. Just think about the Caribbean, in the Caribbean, and every how they are. And I know that from what, because I've traveled quite a bit, just even Southern California from Northern California, it's a huge,
Huge
huge
difference.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. of
Yeah.
our demeanor and how we act. I think there's something to it. But again, going back to the study, what I found and what they were saying is that people that had, like you said, the best healthy relationships tend to have the best physical health. My grandfather has smoked all his life, has drank all pretty much. He doesn't drink anymore, but he drank most of his life, and has never ever been ill.
Yeah.
Nothing. My
No.
grandma, on the other hand, has never drank, has never smoked, and she developed breast cancer. I mean, we would have even not known that she had
Hmm.
breast cancer if it wasn't
Hmm.
for that accident. But overall, she was pretty healthy. And we have this. No, this is another speculation that we say about how trauma can cause
I was
illnesses.
going to say she was carrying a trauma.
So my grandmother's trauma, and I know what her trauma is,
Hmm.
and I know exactly. It wasn't a surprise where we found which breast
Yeah.
had the lump.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So that was why she never felt anything, but there was like a trauma there. And I usually say, oh, there's always a trauma when it comes to cancer.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, they've been healthy, and in contrast to other people that I know that hasn't had those good relationships, they suffered either because of not having people around or they were just in a toxic family. They do develop to have more serious illnesses, starting with allergies. Like allergy has become quite a big one,
Yeah.
and or if they're distant themselves from having good connections with either their partners, families, or kids as well.
Yeah.
I've noticed that their health deteriorates so much more.
I think we'll leave this here now, but I would like to come back to this because obviously in this one we've covered cultural differences, but I also think that there is a lot more that can be covered, like we've just touched upon, how trauma can trigger
Mhm.
cancers and a lot of other illnesses. But that I think there's a lot more to this because as the study shows, and this study has been being done since 1938, and yet health policies have said we need to eat this, we need to exercise that, we need to stop smoking, we need to stop drinking, and very little has been invested on what is a healthy relationship, what is personal development, adult development. This study was called the Harvard Adult Development Study. As I said, started in 1938. You can go and look it up online. Very interesting. And I think there's a lot more to unpack, but we'll leave it there for today and we'll come back to it again. So that's bye-bye from me.
And me. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so and please leave a review, as it helps us grow and bridge the gap between the sexes. If you have any topics you would like us to cover, shoot us an email. Until next time, go out and practice putting all your cards on the table with no judgment, expectations, and fear.